How do you lose body fat and actually maintain your muscle tissue? Well, what this question really is asking is, how do I study the art of competition prep, of photo shoot prep, of body transformations? Because my skill as a physique coach really comes in the ability for me to manipulate variables to present a body shape at the end of a training process. So somebody will come to see me looking a particular way, 17, 18, 20% body fat, with the goal of doing a photo shoot, with the goal of doing a transformation, maybe carrying that amount of body fat, wanting to do a show, depending on how long it's going to take to get somebody lean. And my goal is to strategically take somebody from here to that date whilst dropping body fat, but maintaining muscle tissue. So what usually happens to most people? Well, I'll tell you. Calories are dropped very, very fast, week after week after week after week. Output is increased, so you're doing more training week after week after week. There is very, very minimal tracking of what's actually happening on a week-to-week basis. And before long, you'll see your clavicles, you'll see muscle disappearing off your shoulders. Body fat doesn't look like it's dropping as quick, and you know who you are if this happens. And trust me, the amount of people I've worked with over the years where I was pretty new at my craft, and similarly when I dropped body fat for myself, I made the same mistakes. So what do you do? How do you drop body fat and maintain muscle mass? Well, it's pretty simple. First and foremost, you must make sure that in the initial outset, you've built an amount of muscle tissue first. Because a lot of people try and diet down without building any muscle tissue. So your initial phases of fat loss, for most people's cases, will be increasing your calories over time. As I teach a lot of people that do the programming that I work with, we've got to go through the initial phase of losing body fat by not just stripping down calories. We've got to increase calories slowly if someone's eating a lot of, been following a very low calorie plan. So first thing about keeping muscle mass is you've got to have some in the first place. The second thing is to not get gung-ho on a week-to-week basis. Let's say 16 weeks. You cannot drop calories every single week because somebody ends up hitting such a caloric deficit that their training that they're doing is literally requiring more energy on a day-to-day basis, that it's got to find it from somewhere. And that somewhere is inevitably going to come from muscle tissue. The second thing is you can't increase cardio week in, week out, week in, week out, because you're going to increase your output too much. The body's going to require fuel to get your body to function. And again, the more you increase the cardio, the more the body requires energy, and the more you're going to drop muscle tissue. So you can't strategically drop calories week in, week out. You can't strategically increase cardio every single week. So what do? Well, what you do have to do is you have to test body fat. Whether or not it's one or two sites of the body, you have to know that body fat's coming down. You must weigh yourself every single week, because if you're losing over 3 or 4 pounds consistently every single week, the initial phases of a diet, 3 or 4 pounds is absolutely fine. But if you're losing that consistently every single week, the chances are you're losing too much weight too quickly and you're going to be losing muscle tissue. You need to assess whether or not you are losing strength in the gym. If you're losing strength, the chances are you're losing muscle tissue. But the real way to manipulate your diet to ensure that you drop body fat and maintain muscle tissue is to make very small drops in calories and very small increases in output. So you don't do one or the other. You do very subtle differences. Now, if you drop 2 or 3 mil of body fat in a week, my next trick to you is you will lose body fat the next week without making any changes to your diet. So another trick to losing body fat whilst retaining muscle is not being hasty with changing something every single week. You've got to allow the body to adapt. You've got to watch for changes. So if you're getting stronger or you're maintaining your strength, your weight has dropped a couple of 3 pounds, your body fat calipers have dropped about 2 or 3 mil, then you are going to drop body fat the week after. You will maintain muscle tissue. So it's about making the right call. If you're moving in the right direction, don't make any change. Because if you are moving in the right direction, you keep making changes, your body's going to require more energy at some point, and it's at that some point then you're going to be losing muscle tissue. Now, the final thing I'll say is to ward off losing muscle tissue is as you're dieting down, if you feel weak, if you're losing strength, if you feel pretty depleted, you can strategically add a refeed in. I talked about this in the refeed and cheat meal videos. Adding a strategic refeed in puts glycogen into the muscles and limits the amount of muscle tissue you're gonna burn purely because you've got more fuel in the body. This is a fantastic way to manipulate all the variables throughout a training process and not lose muscle at the same time. So assess everything, keep a track on everything, watch all the variables on a week-to-week basis, and don't be too hasty to make changes.